Hey guys, before we start into this deep dive of the ARN by Anso of Denmark, I just wanted to let you know that this episode is also sponsored by Anso of Denmark. And now, we are going to dive, featuring Jens, of course, into the magnificent double detent knife that is the ARN. And now have fun listening to Jens and I talking about this beautiful blade. Moin Moin and a dear welcome to another episode of Tim's Sprachnachrichten or Tim's voicemails for you English-speaking people out there. And just as I said it, Jens, we are going to talk about the ARN, right?
Absolutely.
It's an honor and fun again to have you on the show. And I'm excited how this will roll out.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. And in general, it seems we always get to talk about something interesting in the end. So I'm always happy for these talks.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me because I feel like that's the thing I want to make happen, right? To get people into interesting, and maybe they can also learn from it, from the conversation, right? So just take something away, get more deeply into a brand, or especially now you, right? Your brand and the knife of the ARN, right? So
Yeah.
maybe we can just start. I jotted down a few questions. So was there a moment where it clicked, or was it an evolution of ideas leading to the ARN?
I think the ARN is a culmination of actually several years of having this thought of developing a small gentleman type style non-locking folder specifically for everyday carry, specifically for those times where you need something small and non-threatening in your pocket. And basically it's something I've been working on for a number of years, including other models, the Monte Carlo being one of them. But I think that the ARN is probably the result of the last couple of years evolution of that idea, really. So for me, the everyday carry blade, specifically if you live in countries with strict laws, or just if you're just around people who are not familiar with knives, it makes kind of sense to carry something small and non-threatening.
Definitely, yeah.
And the ARN really fits into that. Also, for me, just keep on evolving on ideas is really important. So while I'm still extremely happy and proud of the Monte Carlo design, I also need to move forward and create something new, and the ARN really fits into that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can remember a few years ago, I owned a casino, and the detent, it's also a double detent knife, right?
Yeah.
So the detent felt a bit light, right? But now with the ARN, I feel like the ARN hits the sweet spot of having a nice, tough detent or tougher detent, but not too tough not to be able to play around with it, right? So the sweet spot just hits perfectly. For example, I had a few other knives where the detent was a bit light, and they didn't feel like secure enough to get to work even on lighter tasks, right? But the ARN hits it, and that's the thing I love the most about the knife, right? Because the toughness or the tension of a double detent gives, for me, a lot away about feeling of security, right? So
100%.
yeah, so having that feeling, knowing, okay, my knife won't fold in, by cutting a piece of paper or having,
Mhm.
yeah, just from the feeling, right? I can even do tougher kitchen tasks with it, and it's just a magnificent piece for me. Really, I put it through a lot of tests, which was easy for the ARN, right? So, yeah, a magnificent piece. And you feel the evolution of ideas over the years, definitely.
Yeah, and also for me, when I designed the yarn, I just didn't want to design just another version of a previous design. What I
Hmm.
try to do with most of my design is to, of course, make something of real use value, but also introduce some new ideas. And I use the iron to introduce this special inlay, but keeping it somewhat modularity involved in it as well. So with the
Hmm.
iron, the inlays are held in place by the clip, and they are put into the knife by a tiny T-slot. So removing the one screw that holds the ambidextrous clip allows you to remove the inlays. And I think that while it didn't define the design itself, it was really fundamental for me to come up with a very innovative way of adding scales or inlays to the knife.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even being ambidextrous in all its ways, right? The flipper,
Yeah,
of course,
100%.
is ambidextrous. Then
Yeah,
rotating the clip around is easy. Even swapping scales and adapting to different styles of carry is easy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
That
that's
was the
really
whole
awesome.
point.
Yeah.
Um, I I've come to really enjoy the idea that you can customize your own knife once you bought it by just adding a little extra parts. Then you, if you buy extra sets of inlays, well, you can change color for dress clothes or less dress clothes, or have one for each day of the week, or whatever you fancy.
Yeah.
Or if your style of EDC changes a year after you bought a knife, having the option to actually change inlays is just a great opportunity to
Definitely, yeah.
keep you happy with the knife that you have.
100%. I can just agree to that. So, what's a design aspect or principle behind the yarn which is not negotiable for you?
Mm, well, as with all of my designs, not the ARN specifically, is that I design tools first and foremost.
Yeah.
So it needs to function as a tool,
Oh,
and
hell, it
then
does.
after I've secured that, I will make it beautiful and pretty and add nice details. But first and foremost, it's important that it's a good tool, and I think that
Mm,
for the iron, it fits that. Um, Non-negotiables. Other than that, I'm not really sure. It now the iron fits in with the rest of the shop build line, and so I have some design features that are repeated between the knives. Um, Also, I try to evolve as a designer with each design. So I'm really trying
mm.
to just make each knife a little better than the previous. But I think that the non-negotiable while designing the knife was that the spring should be integral with the handle. And in order to achieve that, I had to come up with a very innovative way of adding the inlays. The inlays here serves two purposes. One is adding flavor to the knife. That's
Mhm.
what you see from the outside, but if you remove the inlays, they're also hiding the mechanism and hiding the construction. So in order to take the knife apart, you remove the clip, you remove the inlay, and now you have access to the
Yeah.
mechanism and the backspacer screws.
Oh, yeah, it's a beautiful aspect of the knife, definitely. Yeah.
So that way of constructing it was really a non-negotiable for
Hmm.
me during the design phase.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like with the style of inlays, and maybe if you take like inlays like JG10 or Ultim, right, which are a bit see-through, right? You can
Yeah.
even see the beauty of the construction through the scales, and that makes it even more beautiful, I would say.
Hmm.
But this is really something that appealed to me at first sight. Just having the pivot screw as the only visible screw is
Yeah.
something that gives a bit of, yeah, lightness to the knife, maybe, or to the design, because you don't have too many screws on it and you
Yeah.
don't have screws ruining lines of the knife, right, so to say. And that's something that really appealed to me. Or appeal, not appealed, it still appeals to me, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And functioning wise, producing a tool, um, I enjoy using the ARN in the kitchen
Yeah.
because it cuts vegetables like crazy. I love it, and I even make my breakfast with it. I use it for so many different tasks, and at every task, even cutting down cardboard or something like that, it still performs,
No,
and that's
really happy
beauty
to
of
hear
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, and that's something, yeah, I don't compromise on. Being able to um being able to have having a knife on me which is able to uh yeah, fulfill the task I throw at it without compromise is something that I really rely on it, especially in an everyday carry, right? So having even a legal carry knife here in Germany that is able to do that
Hmm.
is a huge success for me personally.
That's great. Yeah, but I think that the best everyday carry is the one that you actually have on you,
Oh yeah.
and and that makes the iron, in my opinion, pretty successful in the tiny size because it will fit without noticing in any pocket, but
Yeah.
also it will, in if you wear jeans, it will fit the fifth pocket quite
Yeah.
well, and it's relatively flat design, so you won't really feel it much. But
Yeah.
if you're using it in the kitchen and the office and everything, well, that sounds like a successful design for you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And because of the double detent, it's even more successful for people which are yeah, obliged by the law to carry something like the ARN, right?
Yeah,
So
the non-locking feature. Yeah, sure.
yeah, definitely. And that even adds to the daily carryability of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Denmark is one of those jurisdictions where you can't legally carry anything. So in Denmark, it doesn't really matter if it's locking or non-locking, although there is the possibility to carry a knife for legal purposes. And if your purpose is to to cut your sandwich or something like that,
Mm.
and the knife you bring is a small non-locking folder as opposed to 12 centimeter long folder, well,
Yeah.
the chance of it passing as a legitimate tool is higher. So while it's not defined specifically by the law in Denmark, I still think that carrying a small non-locking folder is still it will still make it easier for you.
Yeah, definitely. Even looking forward into the future, and we are about to travel to Scotland for about 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and the ARN is even a legal carry there. So I got my knife for the vacation.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
So just to look back a bit, I designed the Monte Carlo for specifically for the knife laws in Denmark back then. I think I designed it in 2012 or so, if I remember correctly. And back then you were able to carry a non-locking under 7 centimeter blade. So I designed
Mhm.
it with that specific purpose, thinking that, all right, it will only be sold to people within those strict knife laws. But
Mhm.
I found that it sold everywhere,
Oh
all
yeah.
over the world, even to places where there are no restrictions. But, and this is the point I was getting to, having something that is legal just about everywhere just makes so much sense when you're traveling, because you can just put it in your suitcase and don't really worry about breaking any laws once you get where you're going.
Oh yeah, definitely. 100%. What is the most challenging part in manufacturing the yarn?
Um, I don't know if there's much challenge on this compared to the other knives that we make. It did require a lot of engineering before manufacturing, and I think that was the main challenge,
Mhm.
specifically getting the inlays designed so it was manufacturable, if that's a word. Um, that's something that I take into account on all my designs. How is this? Who will make this? How is it going to be made? And while taking these two aspects into account, what can I do to make that process easier? It doesn't make sense for me to design anything that is very difficult or impossible to manufacture. So when I designed the inlay, I started out by thinking, okay, in order to get that inlay into the yarn, we need a very tiny, not end mill, but T-slot cutter. So we started out by just investigating what was available through our normal distributor of tools. So how small could we get those tools? Okay, that has this and that diameter. So in order to machine what we needed machining, and especially since this was such a new and innovative idea, we really had to design it a little backwards. So what's possible to machine for us, and I would design the inlays construction according to that.
Okay, that's interesting. Reverse engineering, it's called, right?
Yeah, kind of, or not really, because that would imply that you already had a final product and then trying to figure out how
Oh yeah, that's
to
true.
make it again. But to
Yeah.
me, it just makes so much sense that rather than having some fantastic, crazy idea and then try and adapt that into production, I design for production. So
Mm.
I just take all those little details into account while designing. That is that has to be the most challenging part, actually designing around it. Even in production, we had some, just because this is a new way of making the double D10. Normally, we would, on the Monte Carlo, we make a liner and insert that into the handle scale here. The liner and the handle scale is integral. So we had to figure out, okay, how do we set the D10 balls at the exact right height, and how do we bend it so it has the same tension all the time. On the Monte Carlo and Casino, I bend those by hand and eye coordination. So here it seems to be the right tension just from experience. And with this, we developed just a small measuring tool that would ensure us that we bend it to the same degree every single time. When I build my
Oh,
custom knives, I have so much information stored in just muscle memory, so I will just do it. But when you work on a team basis, like on the shop build, well, you have to have some very specific um, tolerances or methods set so the full team bends the spring on the ARN to the same extent every single
mm,
time. So
that's
it
so
it it,
awesome. Yeah.
it can't be by feel here, because does if one guy feels the tension is right, it doesn't necessarily translate into the full team thinks the same.
Yeah. Same customer, right?
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, but it to begin with, it our of course the quality of the knife is meant for the customer, but the level that we make our knives for is really for our own specs, our own feel. So,
Mm.
and I've always done that to a point where if I feel that, okay, this feels good in the hand, the mechanism feels good, well, the chance are that a lot of other people will think the same.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just that's so awesome to hear because every time I switch inlays or every week I take it apart to clean it, right? Because a lot of yeah jeans junk, so to say, right, gathers up when you carry it over a week. Um, so, and every time I look at it and see the beauty of the construction, just getting behind what you just told me, or rather us who are listening, right? How much work and detailed work flows into a small knife like the iron is totally insane, right? Because everything has to function the
Hmm.
same way from model 1 to model X, right? So that's an awesome aspect and an awesome detail just to know about, right?
Yeah, and it's something that I never really considered much going into this whole shop build process 2.5 years ago. But it actually requires so much more precision
Yeah.
than anything that I've built up until now, just because, exactly as you said, building 10 knives is easy, building 100 knives is difficult, because all the parts need to fit together individual between the knives, if you should be successful in being able to interchange inlays, for instance.
Yeah.
So of course they should feel the same, and it's just a whole another ball game. And I've, I'd like to say that the last 2.5 years I've learned more in knife making than I have in the 10 years previous that,
Oh
just
yeah.
because it's
Relatable,
such a
yeah.
new process of working like this.
I mean, especially if you have such intricate work, it can be or usually is a very, very good teacher, right? I know
Oh
it
yeah.
from carpentry. If it gets really intricate and you need a lot of details and you really need to figure out how to machine and manufacture certain parts of the result, if it's furniture or knife, doesn't really matter. It's
Hmm.
just how much you learn of it at the end of the whole process. And all of that is knowledge you can use for the next project. And so everything
Yeah.
builds up. And at a certain point, I feel like you come to it and you see, okay, I can do that and I can do that and I can do that. And so all of a sudden, there's a project which gets more demanding because I don't know, it should be, because then it's the next teacher who teaches you even more stuff, right? And so
Hmm.
it builds up over time and yeah, you enjoy it.
I like to say that every day that you learn something new is a good day.
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely. So what's the part you like most about the yarn?
Um, I think I'm starting to repeat myself a little bit here, but definitely
Oh, okay.
the inlay. The inlay combined with the ambidextrous clip, I really, really like that. But also the whole modularity aspect that I designed the ARN with, and we haven't unrolled everything just yet. But one of the main focuses when designing it was that, okay, the blade needs to be interchangeable, so I will have a blade with a flipper and a nail nick, and we are just about ready to introduce the nail nick.
Oh, awesome.
Uh, I think I will be bringing some for the Solingen show in a few weeks.
Mhm.
Um, the clip needs to be not interchangeable, but the design should function with or without a clip. So we also made a small replacement for the clip, which is just a small titanium tab. Obviously, the inlays, which we talked about. The current spacer has a lanyard, but we're also offering a lanyard less spacer. So
Mhm.
all of that was just really important when I designed it, and the fact that I actually succeeded in having a design where you can change the parts, you can make it exactly like you want, both when you order it, but also down the line, and you can just get replacement parts. That is definitely my favorite.
Oh yeah. Now I see and I understand why you feel like you just repeated yourself a bit there.
Yeah, yeah, but
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 yeah.
it's with everything that I do, there's specific details that I just really, really love and enjoy. And that doesn't necessarily translate into what everybody else thinks, but
Mm.
that doesn't really matter that much as long as I enjoy the details. I think that I've designed and focused on details for so many years that hardly anyone noticed. But as long as I noticed, I'm all good with that.
So would you say there's a detail on the yarn that might be overlooked by people, but you are secretly really proud of?
Um, yeah, I guess. Yes or no. It's just I just try to take everything into account when
Mhm.
I design, and every last details is important. But just a detail like if you look under the clip where there's the transition from the thin bent area to the thicker area that attaches to the knife, that surface is perfectly flush with the inlay on the clip side, and I
Oh yeah,
I
I
just
see.
like details like that, and it's something that is not
That's so
necessarily
awesome. Yeah.
noticed
Yeah,
by
definitely not.
anyone.
I just noticed it by now,
Yeah,
just by you telling me. Yeah, that's so
but stuff
cool.
like that is
Yeah.
just super important for me. That
Oh yeah.
even though you don't, it's a detail that doesn't necessarily put attention to itself, but I know it's there, and I know that I put focus on it. So
Oh yeah. That's so awesome. You see, I didn't even notice and I overlooked it. And now you
yeah,
told me, and I'm like, oh man, that's so sick.
but also I like designing knives and making knives where I don't necessarily reveal everything. Um,
Mm.
I like to leave some details for the user to just discover.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
I can see that.
other details on other knives, for instance, the Toko is the way that I designed the clip. It's very over engineered really, but the way that the clip transitions from milled to a bent part, it's just details like that that I really enjoy.
Oh, now I have to check real quick. See there. Oh, yeah. I see how the scale builds up a bit, right?
Yeah, but
And
also
then the
how the
transition of the
clip is
clip into it. Yeah.
shaped
Oh, yeah.
underneath.
I see.
Uh, it's just details like that. Of course, I could shoot a lot of macro images, but I really and show it off. But I really just prefer that people gets to, if they're really focused on looking at details, I like to have stuff that people will see
Yeah.
down the line.
So, everyone listening now, take a closer look to your Anso knives. Maybe there are some details left to explore for you. I love that. Yeah, that's so great. So, if you had to redesign the yarn today or
Mhm.
design it again, would it become the same knife or would it be different?
No, it would very much be the same knife. Also, the ARN is the most recent design, and usually I try to keep at a design until I'm 100% satisfied. Um, that's not always the case. Every now and again, you just have to move forward. Um, but I think that with the ARN, there's really nothing I would change on it.
Mm.
So so it would look the same for sure.
Oh, that's good because I love it. I wouldn't, I wouldn't take it in any other way, to be honest. Because even I have three different inlay materials for it, right? Rich light, micarta, and uh, bronze. And every inlay has a certain aspect of it that brings, yeah, new aesthetic, of course, but especially the bronze. Such a small knife gets really light really fast. And
Hmm.
then adding those bronze inlays to it gives it a bit of weight that feels a bit, I don't know, the handle to blade weight ratio, so to say, feels pretty awesome and really, really. I don't know how to say it. It improves ergonomics somehow, or
Hmm.
feel of ergonomics, so to say, and I really love that about it. So at first, I thought for my personal taste, my kata will be carried on the knife like 90% of the time. But now I'm here, and the bronze gets carried 90% of the time because I love the weight of it and the
Hmm.
weight it brings to the knife and just how it feels. And the patina and all that stuff, of course, brings also some really nice aesthetics to it. But the weight really has something to it that I love. That's yeah. So that's really great, and I didn't expect it to be that way. So
It's interesting how perceived ideas of what you think you will enjoy the most, and then once
yeah.
you get it in hand, um, it might differ. Personally, I the iron that I carry myself is all gray and um, with a carbon fiber inlay, and
Mhm.
I've always I've always had these secondary thoughts about carbon fiber because it's somewhat sterile. It
Oh yeah,
doesn't
relatable. Yeah.
it doesn't change at all by use. And I've always enjoyed green canvas micarta, and I still do that.
Mhm.
And it does patina over time. It will collect oil. So I was I was a little hesitant about carbon fiber. On the other hand, carbon fiber is just such a cool aerospace material, and it has so much technicality behind it. And so I I never thought that, but currently the three knives that are in my rotation right now is it's the ARN, it's the Toco with a carbon fiber inlay, and it's one of the earlier Aras folders, also with a carbon fiber handle. So carbon fiber has really set itself well in my collection right now.
Oh yeah, I
But
feel
but
like
that's also why I try to supply at least an array of materials, because I know
mm,
that, well, I have my personal taste, but everyone is different. So with the possibility to change inlays on the yarn, it allows you to customize to your
oh
specific
yeah.
mood, or if your desire changes. I just think that's cool.
Would you say that the idea and mechanic behind the inlays will transfer into other knife designs of yours?
Um, I wouldn't rule it out. It has its limitations, though,
Mhm.
just from a design standpoint, that in order for the dovetail, or whatever you call this type of connection, it needs to be linear,
Oh yeah.
and people familiar with my design work, there's not much linear anywhere. So it does have its limitations, but I'm definitely very interested in continuing on developing on the idea of this type of inlay. Um, but what I like to do is keep my work around when I do design work, and then let my work itself inspire the next. So um, just as an example, right now I'm working on a design for a new fixed blade, and while doing this design, well, I get inspired by the majority of the work that I've been doing the last 5 years or so. So it's I'm adding details from one design, and size from another design,
Mm.
and just some clever designer once said that every new idea is the combination of two older ideas, and I kind of agree with that.
Oh yeah, I can see. I can see where that comes from. Yeah. So, um, will you? be able to show the new fixed blade in the upcoming months, or what?
Yeah. So the aim is that we will have some prototypes at Blade Show Atlanta, but ideally, if nothing else, I will have some 3D prints at the Solingen show.
Oh,
So
awesome.
so you can
Great.
get a feel for where we're going. But well, it's really sneaking up fast, that show.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah. It is.
so we won't have any functioning prototypes. That's for sure. It's only in 2 weeks. But what we will have, if all goes as planned, is prototypes of the new Aros at the Solingen show.
Oh, cool. So redesigning the arrows to be, I think we talked about it in the last episode, the last Anso recap, quote unquote, where you talked about discontinuing the arrows, right?
Yeah, so the Aros is now discontinued in its current form, and we've been working on redesigning its construction. So the overall knife is the same, but there are some things that I wanted to change, and one of them was the construction. And while I really really enjoyed the construction of the previous hours, it was just a very very expensive way of constructing a knife.
Yeah.
So but we are right now making blades and spacers and for the new version, and we should start making handles maybe this week, or if not the next week. So if all goes well, we should have functioning prototypes
Awesome.
in Solingen.
So there's maybe a lot to check out at the Solingen knife show, right?
Oh
At your
yeah, yeah.
table. Awesome.
Hopefully.
Awesome.
Yeah. For some reason, I have a tendency to just stack projects right at the same time. So right now we're really really trying to get everything together.
Oh yeah, I hope you will. And Jens, I thank you so much for this more detailed look on the ARN. For you
Sure
people
thing.
listening,
It's a pleasure as always.
thank you so much. For you people listening, I will just put some B-rolls of what Jens talked about on the podcast episode, so you can have some visual ideas of that and how the arrows, how the ARN looks, not the arrows, the ARN looks, and what's beneath the scales. And yeah, I hope all of you have a great day. Stay healthy, and I hope we see you, or we will see each other at the knife in Solingen. And yeah, have a good time. Bye bye.